On the surface, James St. Patrick was the perfect success story. A respected nightclub owner, a family man, and a rising figure in New York's elite circles. But behind the polished suits and the million-dollar smile lurked Ghost, one of the most feared and calculating drug lords the city had ever seen. Tonight, we peel back the layers. The kid from Queens, the partnership forged on cold street corners, the empire run like a Fortune 500, and the double life that made him a legend and destroyed everything he loved. This is the origin of Ghost St. Patrick, the businessman, the kingpin, the man caught in between. Early life. James St. Patrick was born and raised in Queens, New York, a borough that teaches two things fast: how to survive and how to keep your eyes on something bigger than survival. As a kid, James noticed two New Yorks. The first was the one he lived in. Cramped apartments, sirens for lullabies, corner hustles that seemed like the only economy hiring. The second was across the river. Glittering high-rises, black cars, velvet ropes. What set James apart wasn't muscle, it was mind. He listened more than he spoke. He watched the flow, who supplied, who collected, who disappeared when the cops rolled through. He noticed that the loudest guys never lasted. The quiet ones, they thrived. Enter Tommy Egan. Where James was composed, Tommy was raw electricity. Two kids from different backgrounds, locked in the same grind, quickly turning into brothers by choice. They didn't start as bosses. They started counting singles on kitchen tables and splitting corner shifts in brutal winters. There's another presence in this origin: the streets themselves. Queens didn't just teach James how to make money, it taught him how to vanish in plain sight, blend in, move product without moving suspicion. Birth of Ghost. The name didn't come from a stunt. It came from a pattern. Deals that went off without a trace. Rivals who couldn't place the hand that moved the pieces. Operations that ran clean, on time, and out of sight. James realized early that the most valuable asset wasn't product, or corners, or even muscle. It was invisibility. Ghost built systems. Runners ran. Lieutenants reported. Money moved through shell fronts that would eventually point towards something bigger. He didn't posture, he planned. And while others flexed with flashy crews and unnecessary violence, Ghost invested in reliability. Safe houses that were actually safe. Phones that were actually burned. And a network that knew its role. But Ghost's real secret wasn't the streets. It was the vision past them. He wanted legitimacy, not as a costume, but as a finish line. A life where he could shake hands with the people in that other New York and never have to look over his shoulder again. The double life. The bridge took shape with one word: truth. The nightclub was a masterstroke, sleek, desirable, and perfectly positioned between the city's elite and its underworld. For James St. Patrick, truth was the face, a legitimate business with payrolls, permits, investors, and velvet ropes. Running truth demanded a different skill set. James wasn't just hiding, he was performing. Shaking hands, hosting celebrities, courting investors, keeping his name in the papers for all the right reasons, and out of the papers for the wrong ones. But double lives collect taxes. To the public, James was a man of class. To his enemies, he was a phantom with a ledger. To his family, Tasha, the ride or die who knew the grind and had weathered its storms, he was becoming a stranger. Late nights, half-truths. The hardest part wasn't the cops or the rivals. It was the calendar. The longer you live two lives, the more you risk losing both. Every legitimate step James took, bank meetings, licensing deals, civic events, made Ghost more vulnerable. Ambition and conflict. Ambition is a fire. It lights the path and burns the bridges at the same time. James wanted the American dream. Legitimacy, wealth, respect. Ghost wanted order and control. The problem wasn't choosing one or the other. It was that each version of him kept sabotaging the other. This is where love and loyalty sharpened into conflict. With Tasha, James had the history, the survival pact, the family. With Angela, he saw a mirror for the man he wanted to be. Clean, above board, free. Then there's Tommy, brother in blood, if not by birth. Tommy loved the life, the corners, the heat, the rush of being untouchable. For Tommy, loyalty meant riding with the version of James who wore the crown in the dark. Two truths, both valid, both fatal when combined. Rivals circled. Some wanted his network, others wanted his name. But the most dangerous enemy Ghost ever faced was the calendar he couldn't beat and the past he couldn't bury. Building the empire, like a corporation. Ghost's genius wasn't just moving weight, it was corporatizing crime. He built clear chains of command, redundancy in distribution, and rules that minimized chaos. No loose talk, no random violence, no sloppy bookkeeping. Truth funneled influence. The street network funneled capital. Ghost played both sides like a CFO and a CEO, one side generating revenue, the other laundering it into a future that looked legitimate on paper and aspirational in reality. The mistake? Thinking a clean ledger could erase a dirty origin. You can white out a line, you can't white out a legend. The cost of going legit. Leaving the game sounds simple until you try to do it while standing on top of it. Competitors don't let kings retire. Partners don't let pipelines close. Friends don't forgive futures that don't include them. James wanted to be the man in the boardroom, the father at home, and still keep everyone who knew Ghost safe, paid, and quiet. Every attempt to exit demanded a sacrifice, a friend, a relationship, a territory, a truth he didn't want to tell. And with each sacrifice, the circle tightened. The nightclub lights kept shining, the suits stayed crisp, the smile was still photogenic. Why Ghost endures. Ghost isn't just a character, he's a question. Can you reinvent yourself without paying for who you were? He's compelling because he isn't a monster or a saint. He's a strategist who loves his family and hurts them. A provider who poisons the well. A man with a clean dream and dirty tools. And in the end, the city remembers the myth more than the man. The businessman was respectable. The father was complicated. But the ghost was unforgettable. Because he was the part of James that the world could never quite catch, never quite prove, and never quite kill. James Ghost. St. Patrick wasn't just a drug dealer or a businessman, he was both. A man split between the life he mastered and the life he wanted, fighting to escape one while being defined by it. And that's the origin of Ghost St. Patrick, the man who tried to bury his past, but discovered that legends aren't buried, they haunt. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Ghost's origin, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next character breakdown. Drop a comment with who you want next, Tommy, Kanan, Tasha, or Angela, and we'll uncover their origins too.